Hello, everybody. This is Tom O'Connor of the Gulf Coast Legal Technology Center down in New Orleans, Louisiana. We're back with the latest episode. I've honestly lost track of what number it is.
I think we might be up to 6.
6 or 6B, technically. That voice of explanation from above was Rocky Messing, our co-presenter and the one with the real knowledge of what's going on here. Rocky's the senior program manager at the legal department at Microsoft, who's been walking us through this. And to my explanation about A and B, our previous session was Search Part 1. We talked about some of the core functions of searching in Office 365 for e-discovery purposes, and especially with regards to tenants in the Office 365 inbox. Rocky's going to do Part 2 today, and please correct me if I get any of this wrong, Rocky, if I overstate what we're going to promise that you're going to do. But we really want to talk about some of the individual searching, deeper searching capabilities and document analysis, what we do once we do those searches inside here, and that's going to include some target filtering and some deeper calling. And Rocky will get down into what the nuts and bolts of that are. Does that sound fair, Rocky?
That's exactly what the plan is for today.
All right. Well, then it's all yours.
Awesome. So, Tom, if you remember from the very end of last time, we had wrapped up with the main, what we call workload searching, right? We had gone through and we had done some searches against the data in the tenant. So against the data in the email data in Exchange, or the SharePoint data, or the OneDrive data, whatever the data is, wherever it lives. And that was searching against that live, always updated index, right? Yep. Where the data is always searchable where it lives, plus any of the data that we had added as custodians for the deep indexing to give even a deeper level of processing and indexing against that data. But most of that searching is really about doing some high-level sweeps of the data, really getting to cut down either by custodian, date range, some keywords, getting down to break down the data set into a little bit of a more manageable chunk as opposed to going against your entire tenant. And the last step that we had done after we had run our search was we actually went in and we clicked on the button to add the results to a review set, and we said we'd come back to that, so that's what we're doing today. So what the review sets allow me to do is it allows me to do all kinds of different actions against this subset of the data. And we'll talk today about some of those actions. I think next session we'll go into even some other actions that I can take against this data. But what we're going to do is we're going to start with this review set that we created that contains all the data that we gathered together for this specific investigation. And you can see that I've got 20,000 items here, 20,579 to be exact. If I go into my Manage Review Set, I can actually see a summary which tells us that we actually have 20,579 after extraction. And that's really important because that means that the numbers that we report in the initial search, when we searched against the workload, those are item level searches, an item level from a Office 365 item definition, which is individual documents that might exist in SharePoint or OneDrive. An email and its attachment are considered to be one item. Here, once we get to the review set, now we're talking about the individual document level. So we extract all of those out. An email and its attachment are now considered to be 2 documents. Does that make sense?
Yep, perfect.
So this gives us a much better sense of how many actual documents an attorney would have to look at if they were to look at everything that's in this extracted review set. We also here have some other capabilities to do some things. We have the analytics, which we're going to come back to on our next session. We have the ability to run predictive coding, which we'll also talk about a little bit later. But we also have the ability to set up our tags and to deal with our non-Office 365 data. And I know, Tom, you had some questions around this, right? Around when we were talking a little bit earlier, you had some questions in terms of really what we're doing here in terms of non-Office 365 data.
Well, right. That's the big question, of course. This is great for folks who are Office 365 clients who are using the Microsoft world of applications. But what if you get documents in your case that are Google Docs that your client uses, or somebody's providing you any type of non-Office 365 material that's going to be not just useful, but perhaps essential for your case? Is there a way to get that in here and use some of these same tools? So that's a big concern, yeah. And you indicated to me that you would reveal the answer.
So let's reveal it. Yeah, absolutely. So what I can do is I can't actually, so for example, if someone's using Google Docs, I can't reach into Google Docs and take that data.
Right.
What I can do, however, is if I've gathered that data together, or if, for example, even just let's say I've got some files on a file server that's sitting in my local data center, right? It's not up in the cloud.
Yep.
If I gather that data together, I can basically bring it in here into a folder, just gather it together like I normally would. I can zip it, I can capture it in whatever way I want to. The only requirement is that the folder name has to be named after a licensed custodian in your tenant. So you can see here, I put this data in for Alex W. And then what I can do is I can simply come in here and upload the data into this review set. So what that'll do is it'll allow me to go through the steps of uploading the files. It'll give me a location where to actually where to upload them to. So I can run this from a command prompt. All I need to do is basically change my source location here to say this is where that data actually exists. So I would point it over to this folder, my non-Office folder that I created here with the Alex W folder in it. And then I can go through that process of uploading that data. It'll do all of the deep indexing. It'll do all the deep processing on that data. And therefore, I've now brought that non-Office data, or non-Office 365 data specifically, and brought that together with my Office 365 data, that then I can do all my analytics and do everything else that I want to do on that data. The other big piece that I should mention is that Microsoft just released, actually in the past week, from when we're recording this, they announced the release of the first of the third-party ingestion connectors, native third-party connectors that Microsoft is releasing. And this first one was for Facebook data that I can actually set up in my tenant. Let's say I've got a corporate Facebook page and I want to make sure that I'm collecting that data so that I can search it, so that I can go ahead and analyze it. I can run compliance tools against it. I can bring that data into my tenant so that way I can run e-discovery on it.
Wow.
That first one is Facebook. I know that they've got a whole bunch of other ones that they're planning on doing, including like Bloomberg and some other third-party data sources,
Right.
Where they're going to basically allow you to bring that data in, that then I can go ahead and run all of my e-discovery tools against that.
Wow. Well, that's impressive. That's big news.
It is big news, and it's for us, it just makes one less thing that I'm going to have to worry about as I'm going ahead and doing my collections and doing my analysis. I don't have to worry about how do I get that data? Do I have to collect it one-off each time? Because the connector can be set up to be constantly running, and that way it's just updated and it's sitting there in the back end of Office 365, ready for me to search and to do whatever I need to do on that. So
right.
We're pretty excited about the possibilities of what we're going to be able to do there in the near future. The other thing that I'm going to want to do here from a review set management perspective is I'm going to set up tags. And the tags, you can see here, I've already gone ahead and set up a bunch of different tags. You basically set up each section. I can choose whether it's a choice or a checkbox. I've got adding various different options here. I can add subsections. I can move them up and down to rearrange them. So this is where I go ahead and set up my tags. The other thing that is something that I can't unfortunately show here, but we are already looking at this and using it internally at Microsoft, is the ability to set up smart tags. So, for example, the first one that they've already released to us is the ability to go ahead and set up, I can just go ahead and, instead of when I say add section, it'll ask me, do I want to make it a smart tag? And I can set up a privilege analysis tag that will run a classifier automatically on my data and will suggest, it won't actually tag the data, but it'll give me the suggestion of whether or not, based off of the classifier, right, off the machine learning, does it think that this data contains legal content or not? So wow. The ability to utilize the machine learning tools directly in my review set is really, really powerful. The other thing that it allows me to do, specifically that one, is it'll analyze to see whether or not an attorney is in the communications based off of a list that I'm able to upload into my tenant of all of the internal attorneys, or external attorneys can be included as well, that I deal with. So right. I can automatically flag if this is a potential attorney-client communication.
Wow.
So that's not what we've done here. What we've done here is we actually set them up with manual tags, and let's go in and see how we can actually use those.
Cool.
So here again, I've got all of my 20,000 items that I've loaded into this review set. Now, if I wanted to, I could come in here. I could open up each individual item. You can see here that I've got a native view of them. I've got the tagging panel. I can basically walk through each of the different items. I can, go ahead, click through. If I wanted to, I could say, yeah, this one has to do with fraud. I could go ahead and say, the next one doesn't have to do with fraud. It has to do with harassment, or, well, this one's a blank one. Whatever it might be, I can start going through here just simply one by one. You can see it's a rich viewer, so it'll bring up things like images in a near native view. If I look at a Word document here, it'll actually bring it up in the Word viewer. So I can get all of the notes and comments and all of those different things. I can see if they exist on this data. So it's a really rich viewer. I also have a text view here. That I can go in just to very quickly see it in a text format. Sometimes that's easier to read. Also, sometimes when there's hidden content, the text extractor will pull that data out. So it'll exist here. And I can actually go ahead and read this sometimes a lot faster than I'd be able to read in the native viewer. But both of those are available. But the other thing that I can do here is I can use filters. So let's go ahead and start by looking at some of the filters that I'm able to add.
Hey, Rocky, could I interrupt for a second? Not to put you on the spot, because I know it's a new announcement, but what would the Facebook data look like in the viewer?
So the Facebook data right now, it looks very similar to what a email looks like in terms of, it'll have some header information there. I should have mentioned that I can also click in here. Let's go to an actual email. And I can actually see the file metadata. So I'd be able to see that it's coming, the item class would say that it's coming from Facebook. I'd be able to see all the various different metadata about this data, and it would show up here looking very similar to an email. Now, one of the things that the team is working on, which is not available yet, is things around conversation reconstruction. So, for example, in Teams, I'll be able to actually see the team conversation the way that it actually exists, or a Skype conversation or Yammer conversation, things like that would show up actually in conversation format. Right now, they kind of show up as individual messages.
Right. Okay.
So,
and again,
yeah.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I know that's all underdeveloped.
Absolutely, not a problem. So let's go ahead back into my filters, and you can see that I've got a lot of different options. I can include my keyword searching, so I can now go ahead and do some additional keyword searching here. I can go ahead and search based off of all kinds of metadata fields. You can see that we're already adding in some of the things around the analytics, even though it's not quite available here yet. If I added this, it would just say that there's no data for it. But I could come in and start looking at keywords. I can look at things by date. I can use my analytics, but we're going to skip that for right now because we'll see that in our next session. I can go ahead and look at things based off of, for example, my sender or the sender domain. So let's see what happens when I add these in. You know what? Let's actually just add size as well. So I can come in here, and you can see that some of them, well, keywords, it doesn't have any values because I need to actually put values in here, right? So I would come in here and I would say, you know, birthday or party. So I could do something like that. I could come in here and I could say, for the custodian, I want to put in the list of which custodians are available here. I can say I only want things that were from, let's say, May 1st until whenever. Or I could say I want it in between May 1st and, that's not showing up quite right, but between May 1st and May 15th. I can come in here and I could say, you know, I want it after a certain date, before a certain date. I can also then go ahead, and if it's something which has multiple values that I'm able to actually choose, I can come in and I can see the list of what are all the different values that are available. So very quickly, I can see, for example, here, what are all the domains where emails were being sent from in this collection. And I could quickly say, you know what, I want to see where were the things that were coming from, you know, personal accounts. So I'm going to pick Gmail and maybe you know, a datum or something like that. Or maybe I want to say, you know what, very quickly, let me see something that's coming from something that is probably most probably not going to be relevant here. So let's look at these couple, right?
Yeah.
And I am going to actually remove the date and the other restrictions just for a minute. My size, again, I can put in based off of how I want to search against size. But for right now, let's just do a quick filter against those 3 domains that I just selected. And you can see this allows me to do very, very quick filtering and quick searching, right? It was much faster than the search against the workload, because here I'm working against a really, really deep index that I've already built. So now I can come in here, I can very quickly look at this data, right? Maybe I want to look at it. Maybe I can look at it quickly and say, yeah, exactly. It confirms what I thought, that, you know, nothing here is actually anything that's important. So let me go in here, and I am going to bulk tag all of them, as I don't even want to send those off for my reviewers to review. So think about that in terms of, let's say I had 20,000 items, and I could very quickly say 4,000 of them match various different domains that I know I don't want to ever have my attorneys waste any time looking at that data. So very, very easy to then filter that data. Once I've already tagged that data, then I can now search against the tags. So I can come in here and I can look at the various different tags that I've actually loaded in, or that I've flagged against this data. If I could remember where the that field is. We'll find it later. Okay, don't remember. But I can come in here and very quickly filter down against my data, figure out what I want to review, what I don't want to review. I can look at items one by one. I could also do something like this. Let's go back to our main list. And I'm going to change this to group all of my documents by family. So this is keeping the documents together, that an email with its attachments or whatever it is. When I'm in here, I can see, based on my conversation, I've got lots of different emails here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select another one of the emails. And I can say, OK, let's look at this, and I can see a comparison view against the data. So think about this in terms of, an email, I'll be able to see the different parts of the conversation. Maybe I can see that someone took out a line in the middle of the conversation, right? So I'll very quickly be able to flag what's different within this email conversation. In a Word document, in a contract, I might be able to look and say, what's the difference between these two contracts? So I can very quickly view the differences there. And let's say right now I decide that, you know what, I actually want to take this one and I want to say that for whatever reason, part of this conversation is not something that I'd ever want to produce. So I can actually come right in here and I can redact directly. So maybe I want to redact this part of the message. I can redact that part of the message out. So that way, when I export the data later, it's no longer going to have that text, and I'll only see a PDF version of this document with the data redacted. So again, lots of different tools to be able to help me to further filter down the data, search it. If I wanted to, these were the filters. The same things are available in terms of actually creating a query to be able to do that same kind of filtering, but then save it so that I can come back to that. I also have some other features in the searches that are automatically created. So for example, I have my potentially immaterial items view, which will go ahead and filter down to just show me here 696 items that are probably not relevant. There are small images, so I could come into each one of these and see, what is the actual. There, it's a little check, right? Yep. It's an image or something that's just most likely not going to be relevant. It doesn't mean that it's not relevant. I do have to still confirm that, maybe it's an image of a spreadsheet or something that's just really small, but it's something that's important, right? It's a construction case, and I'm trying to find whether or not, they knew that part of the building was weak. And look, this image shows that they were sending around images with a highlight of part of the building, right? Yep. So that might be material to this specific case. But it's a quick way to filter data, find the data, giving me pre-canned searches. And then if for whatever reason, again, I wanted to redact that data, I could come in here, go ahead, do a redaction on that data to be able to not show it. So all of these things are all about how do I do further searching, how do I do different document analysis, and then in our next session, we'll talk more about some of the actual analytics that I can run against the data, things like email threading and near dupe, and how to utilize those within my review sets. So,
and at some point we can also, and we're using the phrase analysis of the documents here. This is really almost an ECA tool at this point, right? An early case analysis.
Yep, exactly. It's, I might use it from an investigation standpoint. I've got just a couple thousand documents to look at. If I've got, 20,000, 50,000 items, I'm not going to look at them one by one using this tool. I'm going to use an actual e-discovery review tool. But I would use it to help me to figure out, okay, maybe out of those 50,000, maybe I can eliminate 20,000 of them or eliminate 30,000 of them to make the review set that actually has to be looked at less.
Right. And we will talk, in addition to analytics, at a forthcoming session we'll talk about exporting and how to put this data once we've got it squared away out into something else, whether that's to another person or to a full-bodied review tool, I presume.
Exactly. Yep. We'll go through all of that. So
excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to all of that. This is very exciting, Rocky. I appreciate your time. And any other last comments? We pretty much covered what you wanted to cover.
Yeah, not for right now. I think we're good. But again, as we keep going, I know that there's a lot of people who've been watching these already. So please send any further questions, comments to Tom and I, and we'll be happy to make sure that we cover them.
That's great, and we'll look forward then to the next session, which will be on analytics, which will be most illuminating, I'm sure. Rocky, thanks as always for your time. Look forward to speaking again.
Thanks, Tom.